Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Fisher. On this episode of AZ Illustrated Science, we take you inside an unusual book club, and we explore the latest in wearable computing technology, from possible commercial and research applications to emerging legal concerns. But first, here's a look at today's top stories.
The federal government shutdown last month was costly to Arizona tourism. The National Parks Conservation Association estimates that businesses in and around the state's national parks lost more than $20 million in visitor spending during the 16-day shutdown. The biggest loss was $19.5 million at the Grand Canyon, the state's most visited national park. In southern Arizona, the estimated loss was $1 million for businesses dependent on Saguaro National Park visitors. The association estimates that nationally, the losses totaled $1.5 billion for parks-related businesses. 3 Tucson schools are winners of awards in the Healthier U.S. Schools Challenge. From cooking classes and nutrition lessons in science class to more physical activities, C.E. Rose and Tully Elementary Schools and Pueblo High School were honored for working to change how children think about their health. All 3 schools are in the Tucson Unified School District. A new report says Native American women have the highest rates of smoking before, during, and after pregnancy. The report from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control says 55% of Native American women were smokers before pregnancy. The number declined by half during pregnancy. The CDC says smoking during pregnancy can reduce weight and cause health issues in newborns. And that's a look at tonight's headlines.
Earlier this year, 2 Tucson residents set out to create a book club for readers interested in mental health. But they soon found themselves building a community as well. Gisela Tellis has the story.
When the sun sets over Tucson and the skies start to darken, Dionisio de la Viña and Nina Duckett get to work. The brother and sister duo spend their evenings in service, volunteering their time to educate the community about a subject close to their hearts.
Sometimes one volunteers for causes that are very close to home. And we have in the family several people who suffer from various types of mental illness.
Duckett and De La Viña found their cause in southern Arizona's chapter of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. For years, they've led support groups and educational programs to support those affected by mental illnesses. But now they're also exploring mental health in a somewhat different way, through a book club.
We have been already working with NAMI over a year to a year and a half, when it kind of dawned on me that I've been leading a book club, a regular book club called Libro Raíces, where we discuss Latino writers, right? And we've been doing it for 11 years. So I thought, well, why not a book club for mental health, people who are interested in mental health. And I thought there must be at least one in the city. I was really surprised that there weren't any, and they're actually difficult to find in the country.
De La Viña thought books about mental illness might offer a safe and welcoming way to learn about an often sensitive subject. Duckett says she was struck by her brother's idea.
I really think that Dio had a strike of genius, but don't tell him I said that. But anyway, because what he said to me one day was, as we were getting more and more involved in the support groups, which are wonderful. I mean, people really need support. They need to feel connected, because mental illness is very isolating, not just for the person with the illness, but for their loved ones and their friends. There's a stigma out there that we fight every day. But he said we're not educating.
So when the book club began, Duckett and De La Viña focused on education. But De La Viña says the group quickly became a community.
I'm going to ask a question that is very close to what Susan was just talking about. People who belong to the book club, they find that this is a very good place for them to be with other people who share similar interests and who, have very much the same kinds of pains.
Book club member Mary Christoph, who has a loved one coping with mental illness and substance abuse, says the group has given her a chance to connect with others who understand her experiences.
The camaraderie, knowing that there are other people who are experiencing the same kind of difficulties in their lives. Mental illness isn't something we readily talk about with our day-to-day people that we encounter throughout our day, and so it really helps to have that shared experience. And so that's why I keep coming back. And everyone's very nice and supportive of one another and really compassionate.
Let's start our discussion here, and let's hear some opinions.
The book club runs the gamut of ages, races, and experience, from curious readers who are simply interested in mental health to people whose loved ones live with mental illness or who live with mental illness themselves. Whoever they are, Duckett says they leave the club with a changed perspective, one that ripples through the community.
The fact that we are doing this and they tell their neighbors, and families and friends, about our book club, it also means that we are, having a part in educating the community, which is, to me, that's why we do what we do.
For now, the book club is a single once-monthly gathering in a small room within the St. Philip's in the Hills Episcopal Church. Without additional volunteers, Duckett says NAMI won't be able to support more book clubs, even though there's growing interest in them. But she hopes to see similar book clubs eventually take root in libraries across Tucson, so that everyone can have access to the power that knowledge can bring.
You can make better informed decisions when you see, 2 points of views. And, we read, books that are provocative and books that are biographies and feel-good books, But mostly we're very interested in those books that, have a lot of positive and focus mainly on the therapies and how people can get better. And I think it really gives people hope, they really want to have hope and I think it's one of the best things that has come out of the book club.
Google recently released version 2 of its wearable computer called Glass. This computer resembles a pair of eyeglasses and, more importantly, may signal a new era in computing technology. In just a moment, we will talk with a researcher who is exploring various applications for wearable computers and get into some of the emerging ethical and legal concerns. But first, joining me in the studio are Arizona Public Media Technology contributor Jason Katterhenry and AnnandTech.com senior editor Brian Klug to demonstrate how Google Glass works. Brian and Jason, thanks so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for having me on.
Jason, can the public get these glasses at this point?
Not right now. Right now, Google is in its Explorer phase, where they've issued a select few people Google Glass so that they can sort of provide feedback in a beta form. And last week, Google opened up a list that people can sign up to try and get a pair, but there's no telling when people who sign up will be able to purchase it.
And how many people have been able to receive the glasses so far?
They've released about 1,500 pairs to people across programming and artistic scopes.
And Brian, I noticed that you are in fact wearing Google Glass right now. How long have you had yours?
So I've had mine for about 6 months as part of the first Glass Explorer seed. And I signed up at Google I/O last year and got this pair. And I think I was like number 114 or something. But yeah, they're starting to sample a lot more to lots of other people now.
And Brian, is this version 1 or versus version 2? And what is the difference?
So this is version 1 that I'm wearing. And they haven't said a lot about version 2, but one of the things that they will add is the ability to have prescription eyeglasses. So obviously right now, there's no real way to accommodate prescription eyewear. You can wear it over prescription eyeglasses, but some people that have certain prescriptions can't see them. So obviously version 2 will be compatible with that. It'll also add a speaker on the side. At present, you can hear certain things through a bone conducting speaker that talks into your ear back here. But version 2 will have a USB speaker in addition to go into your ear. And obviously better battery life, way better silicon, way better platform. So addressing some of the concerns that people, such as myself, sort of gave back to Google with the first version. And those are the big changes. They haven't really said too much, though, yet.
And Brian, could you give us a brief demo on some of the things that you can do with your Google Glass?
So at present, Google Glass is kind of like a companion device to a smartphone. So I have it working with my smartphone here. And you can see what I'm seeing on Glass. So obviously what I'm showing right here is what I'm seeing, but it's projected out, sort of a couple feet in front of me. And you can say things, so the interface is primarily driven by voice and touch. So I'm touching the side here to sort of scroll back and forth through this interface of cards. But the main screen is voice driven. So I can say things like, OK, Glass, Google, Arizona Public Media. And then it will come up with results. And then you can obviously sort of act on them, read what the results are, browse a web page, and sort of act on the information that you've gotten. You can also do things like take pictures, get navigation, driving directions. Like if I say, OK, Glass, take a picture, then I've captured a picture. And then I can go and share that with either people on Twitter or Google+, or just even people in my contacts. So at present, the functionality is kind of limited, but it's sort of at a high level a companion device to your phone for communication.
And Jason, what are some of the applications that can be used with Google Glass?
So right now it's primarily accessing information. One of Google's missions is to organize and disseminate the world's information. And some companies have gone with smartwatches to do that. And Google has taken this sort of augmented approach where you always got information in front of your face. Right now, in the latest iteration of their Android smartphones, they do something called Google Now, which aims to provide you with information based on the context, like whether you're walking and what your location is. So you might be walking and it would say, hey, you've got 5 minutes. Do you want to get a workout in? Or, hey, we notice traffic is bad. Take this route. And so if you're wearing Glass, without you doing anything at all, Google can provide you with information to sort of better your life. The nefarious side of this is because they're collecting all this information about you, they're able to probably sell you advertising at some point in the future. If not in Glass, which they say they're not going to, at least on your phone based on location aware.
And it seems we're kind of in a beta mode right now. Jason, when do you expect the general consumer to have access to these devices?
Google hasn't said specifically yet, but there is speculation that sometime in late 2014, an average person will be able to purchase one of these devices. I think they're trying to roll it out very slowly so that the first people that have them are evangelists that can sort of explain why you would own such a product. You can imagine if these just showed up on shelves with no real context, people would be very confused as to why they should purchase such a product, especially at the high price of $1,500, which is what it is right now.
And Brian, we have about 30 seconds left. Do you see this as something that's going to be gaining wide acceptance among the public?
I think Google has its work cut out for them, making this a mainstream product. Obviously, they would love to see it go mainstream. This first version is not for normal consumers. Obviously, version 2 will have sort of feature changes and target a more mainstream, wider audience. I go back and forth on whether wearables like this are going to go mainstream in sort of a very broad market sense. So I guess it depends. It's interesting to see that already there's a lot of attention, and I think some people would be willing to wear it. I don't think everybody will, and ultimately it'll be like obviously up to each user. But I think the benefits are there for things like navigation, for example. I find very useful.
Well, Brian and Jason, thanks so much for joining us today. We'll continue our discussion about wearable computers, their possibilities and emerging legal concerns in just a moment.
JP Morgan Chase agreed to a record settlement with the Justice Department today over mortgage practices that drove the financial crisis. The price tag, $13 billion.
President Obama personally appealed to senators to hold off on additional sanctions on Iran. We have an interview with White House National Security Advisor Susan Rice.
And we remember one of American history's most revered speeches, delivered 70 years ago today. today. Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address.
The speech is powerful in part, I think, because it is so direct and so poetic, and the words carry so much meaning in such a short space.
Those are just some of the stories we're covering on tonight's PBS NewsHour.
Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker fought hard to end collective bargaining by public employees like teachers, who he now says don't all hate him.
I've had teachers come up to me and say thank you. They appreciate that now the one or two who are underperforming and dragging the rest of them down, well, they're gone.
I'm Renee Montaigne, a conversation with Governor Walker on the next morning edition from NPR News.
While much of the talk has been about consumers being able to purchase Google Glass, researchers are already studying various non-commercial applications for wearable computer technology. Joining me now is Associate Professor of Optical Science, Hong Hua, who has been developing her own version of Google Glass and is exploring some of its possible uses. Hong, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Very much has been talked about Google Glass recently. How does your augmented reality display differ from Google Glass?
The technology that I have been developing, there are a few differences compared to the current Google Glass. Number one is the field of view. And the Google Glass offers you the ability to have a screen about cover about 15 degrees of field of view, while the devices that I have been developing trying to push the boundary, being able to achieve much wider field of view. For example, some of the system that we develop for military applications goes as wide as 60 or 70 degrees of field of view, and some of the medical systems delivers 45 or 40 degrees of field of view, and which is like almost 2-3 times wider than the Google Glass.
And Google appears to be looking to develop a commercially saleable product. What is your goal with your augmented reality display?
So my goal as a researcher, I'm trying to push the boundary of the technology. So for instance, we were trying to integrate neural display capabilities. And so, for instance, the military displays and some of the medical application systems, we were trying to deliver a true HD quality display rather than a suboptimal display quality. And then the other thing, for example, we wanted to have the ability to be able to track the eye movement of the user, so that the user can use the eye gaze information as a way of as an input device to the computer. For instance, one potential application of the technology is to be able to use it for patients with the Parkinson's disease or ARS disease. And those patients eventually will lose their ability to control their muscle and will not be able to communicate with their caregivers or outside the world at all. So the technology that I'm developing would be able to give them the ability to communicate with the people around them using their eye gaze.
And what are some of the other medical applications that are offered with your device?
One of the applications that we have been working on is for image-guided surgery. So for instance, you think about a surgeon could wear this type of device while they are performing a surgical procedure, for example, biopsy. You could have the needle path showing through the display and help to guide the needle through the procedure, which in the current technology is totally unavailable. And so for other more sophisticated procedures, for example, laparoscopic surgery, you could potentially eliminate the big monitors in the operation room, which is taking the space and is causing quite a difficulty or challenges during the operation procedure, coordinating between the camera holder and the surgeon itself, but using the device that we are developing potentially could solve some of the challenges.
You mentioned earlier military applications. Could you describe some of those, please?
So for instance, one of the major applications of the technology that I developed for the military users was for building augmented reality-based training and simulation system. So now you imagine that instead of sending soldiers to battlefield to gain the skills, and you can actually build a pseudo battlefield, which is kind of is a mixture of physical environment with the virtual soldiers, with our type of skills you want to train the soldier to be able to fight more efficiently or better when they goes to the battlefield.
So this would be like a very elaborate video game kind of then?
But it hopefully will be better than video game, because video game won't have the real-time interaction capability. You won't be able to see the outside world that much. But here we're talking about a completely mixture of photorealistic rendering of graphics techniques with the physical reality.
While not being in harm's way.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And how long have you been working on this project?
I have been working on augmented reality display technology for nearly 20 years, but for those recent technologies that allows to have a more compact form factor like goggles or glass type of form factor, this is more recent, like 6 to 7 years.
Okay. And we have about 45 seconds left. Can you tell us what's up next? What are you working on right now for the future?
One of the things that have been on my agenda was trying to understand how this technology would have an impact on the social aspect. For example, we all know that stereoscopic display is picking up their applications in entertainment, for instance. And so then a stereoscopic displays cause visual fatigue. And so a natural thing for me is trying to develop technology that would be able to address this type of limitations.
Well, Hong, thank you so much for joining us today. Even though Google Glass has not yet been released to the mass public, it is already banned in places such as casinos, strip clubs, and bars. And it has spawned a Stop the Cyborg campaign out of the UK, which seeks to limit where people can use Google Glass, claiming the technology will completely change how we think about privacy. Here to discuss some of the legal concerns with wearable computer technology is UA Law Professor Derek Bambauer. Derek, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, Derek, the public is already concerned about NSA spying on the public and that kind of thing. What does this mean? What does this new device mean in terms of privacy for the general public?
New technology always unsettles our expectations about privacy. Privacy law in the United States begins in 1890 when Samuel Warren, a law professor, and Louis Brandeis, the famous Supreme Court justice, write an article about the latest threat to privacy, which is the handheld instant camera. And so the instant cameras also are banned in various places. At one point they're banned from the Washington Monument, for example. And so really what this is that this is part of a pattern. We have new information gathering and distribution technologies all the time, and we revisit the same set of worries, which is what are public and what are private spaces? What are reasonable expectations of privacy? And what sorts of threats do these devices create? So Google Glass is in many ways just the latest test case, right? It's a sort of less obvious smartphone with a built-in camera and video camera. And so I think that we will probably have to adapt a little bit our expectations in the same way that we will expect Google to alter how Google Glass works as well.
You mentioned smartphones, Derek. How does this specifically differ from the use of a smartphone? For example, going to a place and taking a photo with a smartphone versus using Google Glass to take that same photo?
I think it differs in two ways that are important. The first is it's a little bit less obvious. So if I'm recording a rock concert or something going on in a public park with my smartphone, it's much more obvious that I'm doing that. So Google Glass is in many ways just sort of much less obtrusive. The second thing that it just lowers the cost. It's so easy with Google Glass to shoot video or to take photos that in itself I think will encourage people to do more of it, right? So we'll just expect that there will be more and more capturing of kind of everyday life.
And there's a current California court case. A woman was cited while driving, and one of the things they're citing her for was using Google Glass while driving. Do you see this as something that's an actual impediment to doing something like driving?
Many of the studies show that we're actually not very good at multitasking, and so there's been a wave of bans, for example, about texting while driving. And one of the things that I think is going to be interesting is whether we resolve this at the level of thinking about the technology, in other words, don't use Google Glass while driving, or whether we think about conduct and behavior. Don't drive while distracted. And one of the benefits to the second one is that it generalizes the problem and it forces us to think about the fact that it's not just Google Glass. It could be fiddling with the radio, it could be yelling at your kids who are arguing, it could be trying to text. And so really Google Glass is just sort of the latest way that we can distract ourselves while doing something else.
And people who are complaining about Google Glass are asking that we have surveillance-free zones where people need not worry about someone taking a video of them or a photo of them. I can think of some examples like locker rooms, private situations, and that kind of thing. How would you address that situation?
You know, the most work in this situation is done by norms. So if you go to the gym or the YMCA, very often they have posted signs saying, please, no cell phone use in the locker room. It's not so much that they're worried that you're going to be gabbing on your phone, it's that they're worried about the potential to capture people in sort of intimate moments. And so I think, too, with Google Glass, we'll get folded into that. And so that, right, the sort of social disapprobation that comes with violating those rules is perhaps the most potent regulating force. But we've also seen states try to address this with law. So in particular, things like video voyeurism, sort of hidden cameras and the like. There are laws, there's a federal law in the books, and there are laws in a number of states that make it a crime to engage in that behavior. So we can see that in some ways these reinforce and that the law can operate as a backstop where norms break down.
And how would the use of Google Glass relate to situations like somebody surreptitiously learning your PIN number on an ATM, or even obtaining copyright material, going to a movie, recording a movie or something like that?
You know, I think it means that we're going to have a world of even more copyright infringement. It'll be so easy to take shots of the rock concert, right, in violation of anti-bootlegging statutes, or of the movie, as you say. It's just much more difficult in some ways, and it's natural, it's instinctive to capture these things. So I think that in some ways, the threat comes increasingly in two ways. One is deliberate attacks, so the idea that I'm going to wait over your shoulder and capture your ATM PIN. But that's actually not that different than just kind of lurking around and doing that with sort of the standard eyeball. The second and perhaps more insidious worry is that we will become so used to using capture technology like Google Glass in our everyday lives that we won't think enough about doing it. And so we'll accidentally capture our own PIN numbers. We'll capture trade secrets of our employer. We'll capture things that are copyrighted. And so that's something that increasingly we're going to have to self-regulate.
And Derek, we have about 45 seconds left. How can someone avoid being victimized by this? For example, what advice would you give to the public to avoid being viewed by somebody with Google Glass inappropriately?
I think that there are two things to think about. One is just to be aware of your surroundings, the standard advice we give to people on the subway. So if you see someone with Google Glass, just make a mental note that it's possible they're capturing it. And Google, you know, the Glass does signal in certain fairly obvious ways when it's recording. And the second is just to be careful in the same way that we're careful around people with tape recorders and smartphones and other devices that can capture these things. So look over your shoulder before you enter your PIN number. And as we've seen, if you're you know, the former director of national intelligence, don't have public conversations about spying programs when you're on Amtrak, because people can listen in.
Great, Derek. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
That's our show. To post a comment on any of these stories or to keep up with the latest news, go online to our website at azpm.org. I'm Alan Fisher. Thanks for watching.